Hello, welcome to Garden Chronicles. Today I'd like to talk about how I propagate my Episcias. This is the propagating style of my Episcias cutting. I find this method seems to be like 100% success rate using this closed container method. Often I find that cutting and placing the plants directly to the soil mix somehow is not successful, and the plant seems to rot and wither away. And I find that this particular method seems to work best. Whenever I buy a new Episcia plant, I take the opportunity to propagate them. Now let's look at the materials needed. The first material that is important and required is this coconut husk. Uh, what I have done is that I've collected this coconut husk from most of the gardeners who remove the coconut husk and throw this away, and they use just the coconut. Uh, Alternatively, you can actually buy them which is already ready cut into chips, just sold in nurseries, and most of the common nurseries actually sell them, but it can be a little bit expensive, or you can actually buy from online. Sometimes Lazada or Shopee do have a cheaper version of it. So these are the things that I actually use: the trim, the scissors, and the cutter that actually trim to small chips. Basically, as long as it's nicely trimmed in small portion, that's easy to fit. Try not to cut too big, then it will be like too difficult to fit in into the container, and sometimes it can be too messy, and the plants, the Episcias may not able to sit properly in between the coconut chips. So basically all this thing is done, and once it's ready, I would suggest to soak them in water for 30 minutes or 15 minutes at least, just to make sure that they have absorbed much of the water. One of the things that is important to do this is because you don't want to put a dry chips in and then pouring water on it and trying to get that moist, and it is actually will sort of like ruin the whole thing, and then you have to take out everything out and then redo all over again. So the best thing is to make sure that they have enough water that is being absorbed in this concept. The next is also the same thing, perlite. What can be done is that soak them at least a day or two, if at all, just to make sure that they have absorbed enough moisture in it. Here it's actually a little bit with the sphagnum moss. If you touch and see, you will find that it'll be there is a little bit of water in it. Also this is the sphagnum moss, which has been soaked in the water for a few days and they've expanded. Some people will actually soak them and wash off and rinse, can squeeze them out and redo that. You can do that too if you want to, but in this case actually it's not necessary, but depending on different gardeners and all that. But as for now, I'm just showing the tutorial for what are the materials that I actually use. Just make sure that it has absorbed enough water and is moist and just ready to be used. The next material is actually the container. What I'm actually using is the food container, which I've already made 4 holes on that. Basically I used the stuff and made the holes using a metal rod. You can actually drill a hole if you want to. Make sure you get a container that has a lid on it, and it must be fully sealed and airtight kind of thing. Why is this important here is that you want to actually keep the moisture in, and make sure you get this particular Tupperware slightly bigger than the usual. The next is the paper towel. You can also use serviettes, and this is a purpose to keep the perlite and sphagnum moss from running out from the drainage hole. And this is how I actually placed it, just to make sure that it's fully covered and is easily drained out from the excess water. I've already said 2 of it, just to this is the whole collection of what is needed. The chips that is been in soaking water, the perlite, and the sphagnum moss. So what I do here is this: I actually spread the sphagnum moss evenly just at the base of it. You can squeeze out the water if you want to, but in my case I just want to make sure that there's enough water in it, so that I don't have to water them for a week or two, and this is suffice. After putting all the materials in, I will just slant the container and let the water drain out. So basically spreading the sphagnum moss first, together with perlite. It don't have to be thick, it just a thin, a small fine layer will do, followed by the chips. Also just barely, what do you call that, fairly arranged, need to be thick or tight, just to have a feel of it, to be well after this. What I will do is that just putting in the perlite in between, just to give the moisture that it will be required for the root growth. You can, if you want to, put in some root hormone powder in the soaking material, just, or you can just spread it, but in my case I didn't want to do that. Just this will actually good enough actually for them to take to root. So they are well arranged, and if you want to add on 1 or 2 just to keep it tight, you can add on more of the chips in it. There is no hardcore science on it. It's more of how you feel it, and it's sort of supposed to fill in about half to 1/3 of the container size of it. The bigger the container, the better it is, but if you have a smaller container, just make sure that you don't have an overwhelming material, and there won't be enough space for the plant to grow. So just 1/3 will be ideal, or 50% is just nice. So basically we are done with the material, and I think yeah, get to go. And if you just have a look at it, this is how ideally it is. You can add in other materials if you want to, such as a charcoal mix, or even an orchid mix, but as for now, what I am actually using is that what I have in my hands. Let's say if you don't have perlite or sphagnum moss, you can actually just use just the coconut husk, or even you can actually also use just the sphagnum moss and the perlite. Okay, so this is where I'm actually showing how I put the Episcias in between, just barely inside. I don't have to choke it all the way in, because the roots will sort of like appear laterally along the vine, the stem. So what happened here is that it is just to help them to hold, and make sure it is not choking, because it may rot. So barely, just to feel that they are well anchored and arranged. Do space them out, because when they start to grow they can choke. So this is how I actually do it. use a chopstick. A chopstick will be good to space them out, and if you don't have a chopstick, maybe a stick or a rod will do. Also, the stolon that comes out, you may not, and they are too tiny, you can also space in between the coconut chips so that they will also easily take root. This particular Episcia is known as Amazon lady. It is considered a little bit sensitive on the open, because I find that they are not hardy, and growing them in this way actually gives a better promise of a better growth rather than just propagating them by just cutting and placing them directly, because chances are, because of low humidity, and sometimes it can be too wet or too dry, they can easily rot away. So this is one of the ways that you can do this to ensure very good success growth. Especially, you don't want to lose this particular species, and they are not easy to get by. This is one of the ways to set it. So this is the just want to show to you how it actually look like very easily. Do take note on the leaf that is at the corner, which may be difficult when you close the lid, and the leaves may actually get stuck in between the lid. So do arrange accordingly. If you want to put it in the center, you can. There are more space in between, but for this tutorial I'm just showing it this basic way of arrangement. So the other two containers, I've already set them up, and this is how it is. It's actually Bethlehem Star and Little Lemon. There's two different types of Episcias. I've actually set this to give to a friend who's very much interested, and I think about a week to 2 to 3 weeks time, this plant will be very well established itself with good roots, and it will be good to go as a good gift. So I'm hoping that it will work out. Let's see how it goes in the 1 to 3 weeks time. So if you notice that they are just nicely resting snug in between the chips, and there is enough space in between, and there is no water retention. It is most important that they should not be sitting inside the water. Do not put a tray or anything underneath it, because once the rot set in, the whole collection will rot away. So it's very important to make sure there's nothing rots from this collection when you place it inside this container. So once everything's done, and after you check, you can close the lid tight and keep it in a bright shade, not direct hot sun where it can get cooked, but in a very nice bright light lit area. So basically everything is easy, everything is done. You're just checking on this. So I will meet you in 1 to 3 weeks time, and I will show you the update about this. Thank you so much for visiting, and hope to see you in a few weeks and see how it goes. Thank you so much.